was like, what is he telling me here? Like, I can't hit? Why is he putting a bunt on with 2 strikes? And I said, do you know why he did it? And he said, no. I said, do you think you could go talk to him about it? And he said, yeah, I think I could go talk to him about it. And he did. He went to the coach. He kind of got the answer why. He understood why. And then he moved forward, right? And so, like, for kids, they got to understand, especially when you get to the next level, particularly, because coaches now have transfer portals, NIL, roster stuff, fundraising, recruit. I mean, there's, these guys are like, they're CEOs of a program and they don't have a lot of time, even the assistants, right? They got stuff to do. You're not always going to get the answer that you want. So you have to learn how to engage and get the answer that you want in a respectful way. Because if that's the thing that's going to eat you alive at the plate or on the mound, like, the only person who's going to suffer is you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Clearing the Bases, the podcast where we step up to the plate and dive deep into the world of youth baseball. I'm your host, Jimmy Filangieri. On this show, we discuss all things related to the preparation and development of youth baseball players, coaches, and yes, even parents. So sit back, settle in, and get ready to hear from some of the greatest baseball minds out there.
It just raises a flag, right? So I'm like, okay, let's try to put this puzzle together and figure out what's going on here. Because if the kid's telling me A and mom and dad are telling me B, what's truthful, right? Or maybe the truth is somewhere in the middle. And I want to be able to do that so I can help the kid, right? But I think with parents, I think it's listening to them and trying to sort of give them, same idea, give them little advice. Like, I'm not going to go tell a parent how to parent their kid, right? Because I have my own kids. And I know as a parent, we do the best we can, right? We just want that perspective sometimes that we're not hurting them.
To be able to reach the highest levels of this game, you got to work hard. You got to get in the cages. You got to do your strength and conditioning. You got to throw your bullpens. There's all of this physical stuff that you need to do, and you need to work hard at it. But don't forget that you also have to get better at the mental side of the game. And one of the ways you can do that is increase baseball IQ by downloading and using the 6 Tool app.
For baseball coaches like you, every game brings measurable progress. However, game time isn't the time for trial and error learning. Instead, have a proactive approach. Use 6 Tool, the best baseball player development tool on the market. We provide a platform to level up your coaching strategy by helping you to quickly identify and address your players' knowledge of the game. By using our easy-to-implement interactive player quizzes, you can assess position-specific issues, overall baseball IQ, and much more. Win more games and develop better overall baseball players with effective off-the-field training. Visit us at 6-tool.com. 6 Tool. Get ahead in the game.
Okay, everybody, we're going to jump back into the world of mental performance. So everybody knows how important mental performance is to me. So today we're bringing on Michael Huber. He is a certified mental performance consultant specializing in sports psychology. How you doing today, Mike?
I'm great, Jimmy. Thanks for having me.
Oh, kidding. It's my pleasure. This is I don't want to say my wheelhouse, but this is something that I really feel is very, very important with young athletes, because I feel like not enough time is spent on this in the development of players. So I'm really excited to get going. Tell us a little bit about your history. Sports. Did you play sports? Give us a rundown.
So one of the biggest reasons I got into mental performance and sports psychology was because of my own experience as an athlete many moons ago. Right. I grew up playing baseball. That was my first love. I played from the time I could pick up a bat until I graduated high school. I started 2 years on varsity in high school, and I had one of my most 30 plus years later, I still think about this slump I went through as a senior in high school. And when I started contemplating a career change, because I didn't start in mental performance, I started in another line of work. I started thinking about that experience and how like it wasn't baseball related. It wasn't my ability. It was what was between my ears. And I had nowhere to go. Couldn't talk to my coach. I couldn't talk to my teammates. My teammates who are still my best friends to this day. I'm sure you can relate to that. Rode me mercilessly. And it was like one of the hardest things I ever went through in my life. And I had to just sort of like bottom out to get out of it. Right. I had to get to the bottom where I'm like, I don't even care anymore. Like now I'm just going to go play because it doesn't matter. But after, this stretch, which seemed, like months, was probably 5 or 6 games, it was like torture. And I was like, why do players have to go through that? Right. Like why do they have to struggle and live in their head and, think about all the bad things that are going to happen to them, getting taken out of the lineup. I'm not going to play college baseball. My parents are going to lock me in the basement and not going to feed me. Right. Like, obviously I'm being facetious, but like, yeah, like it's just like, 30 years later, it's still the same thing. And now we live in a world where, you live in this world more than I do every day, with social media and showcases and comparison and all the stuff that goes on and all the training that kids do all year round. I played 3 sports. I was a football player, I was a baseball player, and I was a basketball player. I didn't play baseball all year round. These kids are playing 365 days a year, and they're constantly under the microscope. So when do they have a chance to sort of breathe? And do they have the tools to endure that environment? Like I put that pressure on myself in 1993 when no one gave a crap about my stuff. Now everybody cares, or at least we think everybody cares. And now there's that internal pressure, but now there's all this external pressure. And so it's kind of like a pressure cooker. And so like I wanted to be the guy who kind of stepped in and said, hey, let's try to find some tools here to take some of the pressure out of that system and learn how to sort of cope when the spotlight is on and I don't have to like feel like I'm tortured, and I can enjoy the game again, at least on some level.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, something that you mentioned about, playing 365 days a year. I just, the hunger is missing. Okay. And that's a big part of what we deal with. It's to them, it's kind of, it gets to be mundane. It gets to be, very repetitive. They don't have that, hunger, like, hey, geez, baseball season is coming up. Boy, I'm so excited to go. It's like, yeah, well, all right, tryouts are tomorrow, we'll go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting, what one of the things I do find, and I don't know if you experience this as a coach, but one of the things I do hear quite a bit is, kids definitely get a little bit more excited for their school season because it's more focused on winning. Like I have a kid that I'm working with now who's a really good player. It seems like he's trending towards college at some level, potentially a Division I kind of kid. But he puts a ton of pressure on himself. And we talk about the difference between his school team, which is kind of till like travel, which is in a high level travel program. And he's like, yeah, in travel, I'm focused on development, but we don't really have any sort of team chemistry. We just go out there and like play. And, I've been out to, I don't know if you've been out to Diamond Nation out here in Jersey, there's a lot of stuff going on out there, and you could see there's really no energy. Everybody's just sort of going through the motions, but that's when they're being recruited, right? Like, are you a team player? Are you enthusiastic? Do you have the energy? Are you picking up your teammates? Or are you just going out there and just like, like a robot going through the motions? Like, yeah, it becomes like, it just doesn't become as important. Cause I know for me, those 2 or 3 months, I just played baseball those 2 or 3 months, or maybe a little bit in the summer, where it was like this was it, right? Like you got to go out there and you got to really do your best. And if you don't, it's going to hurt versus, oh, I got another 3 months coming up in the summer here and I'll pick it up then.
Yeah. Yeah. And an interesting point that you brought up was about, the travel team. Okay. So the travel team has kids from here, kids from there. They're not necessarily friends before they get on this team. And it's very hard to create that chemistry because I know, like with me, both schools that I've coached at were private schools. So very, very similar dynamic where everybody's coming from all over the place. And yeah, it takes a while to build that chemistry because they really don't know each other.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, you're right. But I feel like the differences, and you probably could speak to this better than I can, but I did spend 1 season coaching baseball at a private high school here in New Jersey. And I think when the difference is that you're playing for the name on the front of the jersey, right? When you play for a school. So maybe that chemistry doesn't exist, but there's some level of pride, and we're playing for a state championship. Like that drives kids. Like, I want to get to that place where we're competing for something big. Whereas in travel, it's just, win, lose, or draw. It's like, well, we won the tournament. Great. But like, did I hit well? Because I know the coach is watching me. Right. So, it's still a game. It's still played to be won and lost. And in fact, I'll tell an interesting story. I was at a baseball game a couple of years ago here in New Jersey, a very high level game where actually one of the kids plays in the SEC now. And it was a great playoff game here in the Shore Conference in New Jersey. And a college coach, a Division I college coach, just happened to be standing next to me. And I didn't know him, but I just sort of like, started talking to him for a bit. And he's like, yeah, I like to come to these games to see if kids can compete, because they don't compete necessarily in those travel ball games. I want to see them under pressure. And I just thought that was a really interesting comment. Obviously it's a hard thing for college coaches to do in season. And he was a Jersey coach, so it was a little bit easier, and it was towards the end of the season. But, he said like, hey, I want to see these kids compete when it matters. And I was like, you know what? Like that's important, right? Like you can get the best showcase, pony out there, right? But when they get into the game, are they going to be able to take an extra base, or they're going to pick their teammates up, or they're going to hang their head? Like, you might not see those things in travel ball as much as you do in a school game.
Yeah. And again, like I said, you hit the nail right on the head. That's the problem that we have, is that they have that individual mentality. Okay. Mm-hmm. How did I do today? How am I going to do? So us as coaches, we have to try and put it all together, make them understand that it's a team game. It's a team environment. And, we need to move runners. We need to, if there's a run around, you give yourself up to get that run in. And it's, it's a complicated process, and it takes a long time to get them to understand that, because they're so used to, I'm going to this tournament and such college. Oh, I got to do good today,
Yeah.
And I really don't think that they realize that the college coach wants to see you go 0 for 4. He wants to see that.
Thank you for saying that, because that's a conversation I have all the time. And you're absolutely right. Like, what I say to kids is, every single coach, or 99% of them, if not 100% of them, who are watching you play college baseball or play baseball, they know what it's like to have a bad day at the plate. So if you go 0 for 4 at the plate, like, that's not going to necessarily define whether or not you're still valuable or recruitable in their eyes. What's going to define you is what's your body language look like, what's your face look like, are you running in and out of the dugout, are you hustling, are you showing up, showing them that you can handle the adversity, because they're watching that, right? And that applies in every sport. Baseball, it applies in AAU basketball, it applies every sport, right? Like, somebody is always watching. And so what do you control? Because if you're not able to handle that adversity, the coach is going to go, I don't want to have to deal with this when this kid gets on campus. I don't need that. I got too many other problems, right? They got to be able to take care of themselves and show up, because that's in their control. And I think that that's a message that, for whatever reason, I think kids, it resonates with them, but you really got to hammer it home of like, hey guys, doesn't matter if you go 0 for 4. It's a matter of how you handle 0 for 4, because if you don't handle it, that's a scratch out, because I'm not going to try to pick this kid up from sulking after a bad day, because I don't have time for it.
Yeah. I mean, we do it at the high school level. I mean, I'll give you an example. A few games ago, I had a player that, I don't remember what had happened, but he wasn't happy about something. Okay. And, he was on the bench, and I said to him, he was one of my pitchers, and I said, okay, go down the bullpen, go get loose. So he did. He came back, he sat on the bench again, and I'm watching his body language the whole time. And I never put him in the game. Never. Even though he got loose, I wound up getting someone else loose and whatever. And after the game, I pulled him on the side. I said, do you know why I didn't put you in the game? And he said, no, coach. I said, because your body language was horrible. I said, you already, by your body language, told me that you were defeated, you checked out, and you're done. I said, I'm not putting you on the field, because it's only going to get worse. So, yeah, I mean, the way you act, coaches know, they pick up on that. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah. Well, I think what you said there, though, is really important from a coaching perspective, right? Because one of the things that I experience working with kids privately, which is the vast majority of my work, a lot of times they express frustration with coaches, right? Which that's a story as old as time. Sure. But what you did for the kid was you explained to him why you made the decision that you did. Whether he likes that or not, it doesn't matter. but at least he understands the reason why, so he can make the correction if he wants to, right? And that's the thing I talk to kids about, is like they get so in their own head about, well, why aren't I playing? Or why did coach do this? Or why did coach do that? But they don't know how to get the answer, right? Sometimes coaches don't give it to them, right? And they want it. Well, sometimes it's on the coach, but sometimes it's on the player. Like, especially at the college level, I'll tell you a story. I worked with a kid for a bit one season. He played in the ACC. He was a shortstop. He started. He was a really good player. It was a really good experience for me because he was a super high level player. And when I first started working with him, he told me a story about how he was struggling at the plate early in the season, and the coach put on a bunt with 2 strikes, and it really messed with his head. He's like, what, was like, what is he telling me here? Like, I can't hit, why is he putting a bunt on with 2 strikes? And I said, do you know why he did it? And he said, no. I said, do you think you could go talk to him about it? And he said, yeah, I think I could go talk to him about it. And he did. He went to the coach. He kind of got the answer why. He understood why. And then he moved forward, right? And so, like, for kids, they got to understand, especially when you get to the next level, particularly because coaches now have transfer portals, NIL, roster stuff, fundraising, there's, these guys are like, they're CEOs of a program and they don't have a lot of time, even the assistants, right? They got stuff to do. You're not always going to get the answer that you want. So you have to learn how to engage and get the answer that you want in a respectful way. Because if that's the thing that's going to eat you alive at the plate or on the mound, like, the only person who's going to suffer is you.
Yeah.
Because if your performance suffers because you're in your head about not understanding what's going on, like, you got to take responsibility for that. So a lot of times that's something I talk to kids about, is like, how do you have that conversation? Why don't you want to have it? Like, how can we get there and do it in a way that you feel good about it and that you get the answer that you want, even if you don't like the substance of it, so that you can move forward and try to make some changes?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, as coaches and, all the coaches out there that may be listening, communication is a huge thing in coaching, and, the better communication and the more communication that you have with your players, the better off they're going to be, the better off the team is going to be. Communication is huge. So you have to let them know what's going on. I mean, it's just that important. So,
yeah.
When you pick up a new athlete, okay, new guy comes, say, Mike, I want to go through your mental performance training. Give us an idea. What does that look like? How do you start with them?
It's great. So from my perspective, I mean, some of this is just training, but this is just the way I like to do things, is I really want to try to understand them as best I can, right? Because there's so many layers. There's so many things I don't know, right? Especially if it's a kid who's coming to me when he's 16, 17, 18 years old, and he wants to go play in college. There's a whole backstory, right? There's baseball from the time they start at 5 years old. There's parents, there's coaches, there's all sorts of experiences. There's injuries. There's all those kinds of things, right? Can I reasonably learn everything about the kid in a short amount of time? No, I can't. But I'm going to do my best to do that, right? To try to really, like, get under the hood and say, like, hey, what's going on here? To try to understand them, because I think they want to be understood. And I don't know if that's, generational now more than that was 30 years ago when I was a kid, but I don't think so. I think it's just human nature. I try to understand them, listen to them, because I think a lot of times too, truthfully, they've got that dynamic of parent, who is giving them the advice or trying to give them the answers, but isn't necessarily listening to them or understanding them. They're trying to fix, which I'm a parent. I do that too, right? Even as a person who works in mental performance, I want to give my kids the answers to the test so that they can just go out and feel better, right? But the kid is like, hey, I got all this stuff going on and I want to be understood. I kind of want to unravel it. And a lot of times that process of sort of asking those questions and getting to understand, like, what's going on helps the kid just build the awareness of, hey, what is going on? I don't know what I'm feeling. I don't know what I'm thinking. Like, why is this happening? And then once we sort of get through that initial stage, it's like, okay, well, let's start trying some of these things that are going to help you on the field. Maybe right away, right? If I get somebody in season, they're going through something. I mean, I'd say 75% of the people who come to me, if not more, are coming to me for a reason. Hey, I'm struggling, right? I want to fix this, which, that's hard because now you're under pressure. You want to fix something and you want results right away, which isn't necessarily the way that mental performance coaching or anything works for that matter, right? They want a quick fix.
Yeah.
So I also try to meet them where they're at, right? So, like, if a kid's in season and you struggle with something, it's like making little adjustments, right? Like, start using your breathing more. Like, and just pay attention to that, right? Like, use your breathing in between pitches, like use your breathing in the dugout, use it all the time. And don't forget about everything else. Just relax, because if you relax, all that stuff you do 365 a year is going to start to come out more naturally versus I'm tense, I'm tight, I'm holding my breath, I'm clenching my teeth, my shoulders, my hands, my legs are shaking, and I'm going to chase a hit. Well, that's not going to help, right? You know, if you just relax, let's start there, and like, let's not overcomplicate it. We don't have to go visualize anything yet. We don't have to go, do anything. Sometimes I have them write stuff down, right? Like, how do you want to play the game? Write it down on your batting glove, on underneath your hat, on your wrist tape, like little like reminders of like, hey, like, when I'm in the toilet, like, let's put the focus back on what do I want to do on the next pitch, right? Those little things, let's like kind of like feed them into the process to see if they make a difference. And then usually what happens is it does. And then you kind of get a little bit more buy-in of like, hey, this is working. Now let's try something else. Let's like add a layer to it. Or let's just get really good at being consistent with it. It doesn't have to be this like, mysterious, mystical, overly complicated process. It's really about, I'm sure as a guy who's into mental performance, you've heard of, Ken Ravizza, who's now passed us, right? Ken Ravizza is like the godfather of mental performance in baseball. And he was like, do simple better, right? Like, get the simple down and do it better and do it consistently and don't overcomplicate things. Or you're not feeling good today. Okay. You don't have to be perfect, but can you give 100% of what you got, right? Like, really focus on that little stuff and get good at it. Because I think the biggest challenge I see with kids is the consistency, right? They try things and it works, but then once things are better, they throw it out the window, right? And they go back to doing things the way they were. And then, 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years later, they come back and say, oh, I stopped doing that. And I'm back to where I was. Like, can we start over again? So it's a process, but I try to treat every kid differently as the best I can. But there are definitely things that I try to do consistently because it's just the most efficient way to get started and get off on the right foot.
So a couple of things you said there, very interesting. I just had this conversation yesterday with one of my players. Last year, as a sophomore, he was one of my best hitters on my team. This year, he's one of my worst. Okay, So we sat down and I said, okay, what's going on? And he said, I don't know, coach, this and that. I said, well, I'm going to tell you what's going on, okay? And you just hit it on the head, okay? I said, last year, you were focused, you were, you were on point, and you did all of the things that you needed to be a good hitter, like we discussed. This year, I said, you threw all that out the window. All of it's gone. I said, and you reverted back to before we started working with you, and you're back in that, and I don't want to get into detail what he was doing, but, I said to him, I said, look, let's refocus. Let's start thinking about what we did last year. And it's simple stuff. It's not really anything complicated. And let's see how it moves from here. I don't know, because like I said, it was just yesterday. But again, it's right away, coaches will want to go to their mechanical stuff, and,
Goodness.
Your hands aren't, or your hips are not. No, 9 out of 10 times it's something in their head. And, that's, and I wanted to share that because you touched on that.
That's, and as a coach, like as a baseball coach, like I'm addressing you on this, it's like, that's great, right? Because that's the same thing I say to a kid. I've played a lot of baseball in my life. And the thing that I always believed about myself was and I wasn't a great mechanical hitter because I didn't grow up in the age that these kids grow up in, right? Like the way that they're trained is like, I learned how to swing a bat on my own.
Yeah.
Right? But even still, as I started to play in adulthood, like I started to realize it's not the mechanics most of the time. It's the mind that breaks the mechanics down, especially with these kids. Like you said, 9 out of 10 times, that swing is trained. They go into the cage and they're like finely trained machines. They barrel every ball. Everything looks perfect. They feel great. Well, why is it different in a game? It's not because the mechanics are flawed. It's because now all of a sudden you're putting this pressure and the tension that's in the system, whatever that looks like, or whatever that is, whether it's muscle tension or whatever, your heart rate goes up, your mind starts to go, I got to get a hit. The mechanics break down because of that, not because the mechanics are flawed. But a lot of these kids, the first thing they do is if they have a bad at bat and they roll over on a ball or they get underneath a ball, it's like, well, I got to change A, B, C, D mechanically versus, well, what I really need to do is just take a couple of deep breaths and relax and try to focus back in and just put a good swing on the ball and compete. If I do that, my body's going to go naturally. And now all the mechanics miraculously show themselves, the good stuff. Right. So like, I think they have to hear that. And for you to like kind of share that with a kid and talk to a kid about that's great, because hopefully he does what you say, right? Because it sounds like he needs to make a change. And if you don't make a change, you're going to keep getting the same results.
Right. And I can go on and on about players. I have two pitchers that are very well trained. I mean, programs, lessons, there's thousands upon thousands of dollars spent on their development mechanically. Okay. They can't throw a strike. Okay. Because what winds up happening, like, you know, they get paralyzed by that training. So in other words, they're on the mound and whatever, they missed high. The first thing that comes in their head is, oh, well, my release point might be, you know, is probably wrong. You know, let me fix my release point. And, you know, I have to work with them constantly to tell them, no, no, reach back, throw the damn ball. And if you're having problems when we're done with the game, you go work on whatever the hell you want. But now just reach back and throw. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, that's, I mean, for whatever reason, I at the moment, and I've actually worked with many more pitchers than hitters. And, you know, that's something we talk about too, like that idea of resetting themselves after every single pitch. Right. And, you know, I kind of go through them with how they sort of like can design that process of resetting themselves. But what I'll get to is like that having a refocused cue that's really directed at what's out here, right? The external focus of attention. So one guy I worked with who actually, he pitched in the Giants system, attack was that, right? Like he wanted to go out and attack the glove, right? Or another kid I'm working with now who's a high school player who's going to play in college next year, it's compete, right? Like it's getting out there and just getting back into, okay, like that pitch was high, but let me go back and focus on, let's just go attack the glove on the next one. And getting into that routine of pitch by pitch by pitch, I'm really focused on what's out here. Because if you're focused on the way your body's moving, if you've been playing the game 10, 15 years, it's probably not the most efficient use of your attention because your body knows how to move, right? So now I'm focused on where's my arm versus like, hey, that was just a bad pitch. Let it go. Let's move on to the next one and let the body take over. Again, it's the same idea, but it's really putting that focus out into the environment versus putting it in here, which gets in the way, becomes a distraction. And now we're thinking about, well, how's my body moving? What I need to throw a strike, all this crap. And it's like, you're getting in your own way, and you got to learn how to get out of your own way sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love the word you use. It's perfect because I use it all the time. You'll hear me in the dugout. I don't say much, but what I will do is I'll just yell out to my pitcher, hey, attack here. Let's attack. And you use the same exact word. And that's,
yep. It's a great word. It's a simple word. And when I coach kids, you know, like when I coach rec baseball, you know, just attack, like just go after the guy. Yeah. Don't worry about the outcome, because once that ball leaves your hands, there's nothing you can do about it anyway.
Right.
If you go out there and commit to what you're throwing, whatever that is, you're going to be okay. And if it doesn't end up being a strike for whatever reason, whether you miss or you get squeezed or whatever, you get the ball back and you start over. Yeah. And you do it again and you do it again and you do it again. And that's really a big part of like the way I coach kids is like, get into the process of executing each pitch, or get in the process of taking a swing at each pitch and treat it as a new day, a new entity, and have the same approach. Is that, you know, completely feasible? No, it's not going to happen perfectly. But if you have a routine, you're going to do it more often than not versus, oh, I swung and missed at that one, I got to change something, or I struck out on that at bat, now I got to get a hit. Like none of those things are really very helpful when you're playing a game like baseball. That's so damn hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things you talked about earlier that I want to kind of circle back to is you talked about playing tense. Okay. And this is another like big subject with me. Okay. Where does that tension come from? Well, that tension comes from mom and dad. Okay. Number one, it comes from mom and dad. Number two, it probably comes from the coach. And number three, it'll come from within. Okay. And I think it's kind of in that order. So if players could learn, okay, that, hey, mom and dad, they're going to beat me up. All right, whatever. But it doesn't mean anything. Okay. If you have a bad coach, he's going to beat you up, whatever, but you have to stop beating yourself up. So Talk about playing tense and why that's so bad.
Yeah, I mean, playing tense. I mean, it kind of goes back to what we were just talking about, right? When someone's playing tense, their body can't do what it's naturally trained to do. You're getting in your own way. You're right. You're telling, and it's also telling your brain, right? Like from a psychology standpoint, right? You get tense because up here in your brain, between your ears, you go, well, what I'm about to do is really scary, right? It's really dangerous. If I don't get a hit, what's mom or dad going to say? If I don't get a hit, what's my coach going to say? If I don't get a hit, how am I going to feel about myself? So your brain goes, man, this is intense stuff. Sends a signal to your body gets tense, and your body, if you stay tense, that sends a signal back to your brain. It's like, you know what, brain, you were right. Like, this is really scary versus, hey, my body's tense. I notice it. It's not that scary. I'm just playing baseball. I take a deep breath. And now I tell my brain, hey, it's going to be all right. It's just a game, right? I can go play it freely and be okay doing it. And I think, for me, I'll speak from my perspective in terms of like parents and coaches. I think one of the biggest benefits, and maybe this is a self-serving comment, but I think it's true because I've experienced this in so many instances. I think as a mental performance coach, kids having the ability to talk about what's going on without being judged or beaten up, or they can really open up about what's going on and not feel like it's going to be used against them, right? And I'm not saying that badly about coaches, but that's just the reality, right? The parent-child relationship is conditional in a certain way as it relates to sports, right? Parents are investing a lot, right? We don't have to go into that. But there's this, at least at a subconscious level, the kid's like, well, mom and dad are giving away their summer to take me to all these tournaments. Mom and dad are spending all this money, and I don't know exactly what it is, but I know they're sacrificing for me to play baseball. I feel like I need to deliver something to meet their expectations or repay them for what they've done, right? That dynamic exists. And then there's the coach, right? Well, the coach controls the lineup card, right? If I don't hit, then the coach is gonna take me out of the lineup. That might be true, right? But if you're thinking about that, that's not going to help you. So when they come to me, it's like, okay, like I'm not taking you out of the lineup, and I'm not going to beat you up, and I don't care. And I don't even care if you do well. I mean, I want to see you do well, right? Don't get me wrong. But if you come and tell me you went 0 for 4 and you struck out 3 times, they'd say, okay, what happened? Oh, let's talk about it. Why? What are we going to do differently? And that kind of gives them the room to be like, okay, let's talk through it. Let's understand what happened. It's not the end of the world that you go 0 for 4. I don't overreact. Like, oh my God, you went 0 for 4. Okay. We all go 0 for 4. Let's try to understand what happened there. And I think that ability to talk about it is really helpful. And in terms of like, I think one of the things that's also a benefit, and I don't believe this to be true in all cases, because I've worked with kids who play all sorts of sports and I've never played them, right? But the ability to talk in their language about a game like baseball, I think is really important. It's so unique. And if you've never played the game and you can't speak in their vocabulary, I think it's hard, right? So like I can talk to them from my perspective as somebody who's coached and somebody who's played and somebody who works with a lot of players, and to be able to talk in their language sometimes, not in like mental performance mumbo jumbo, but just like, hey, like I got it. I understand what you're going through. Why don't you try this? Because that's something that might help you. And I think that element of it helps them as well. So it's hard. It's a hard dynamic. You know it. You lived it, right? You have those parents who come to you and they talk to you and they express their frustration, or the kid comes to you and expresses his frustration. You got to put up with all that. I'm the guy who's sort of like removed from that. But I also encourage them to go back to something I alluded to earlier. I encourage them, the player, right, them, to take ownership. And if you don't like that environment, you do have the choice to speak up for yourself. Now, it may seem scary or intimidating or whatever, but if you really want things to be different, sometimes you got to do something that makes you uncomfortable. And you also got to put yourself in those people's shoes. Your coach's shoes for sure. Hey, he's got 9 spots. He's got 20 guys. Like, you're not entitled to anything, and he's going to do what's best for the team. It's not that he doesn't like you, right? It's not that he's punishing you. But if you can't help the team win, even at the high school level, you're probably not getting on the field. So like if you're not understanding that and you're not able to put yourself in the coach's shoes, then you're just going to torture yourself. Right. So, and same for parents. Like the kids can't be blameless. They can't be victims. In my view, you got to take responsibility for your career, especially if you want to go play at the next level, because when you get to college, it ain't getting better.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, one of the things that you just said is, I another thing that I believe is very important where you said, the coach doesn't like me. Okay. So one of the things that I believe is so important is making sure that the players know, one through how many you have on the team, that they know that you actually care and that you love them. Okay.
Yeah.
It makes your life so much easier because, again, when you have to have those difficult conversations, they know that you're coming from your heart. You're not coming from your head. I love you to death. I'll do anything I can to help you. However, this is what's going on. And again, you develop a certain level of trust with the players by letting them know that you love them.
Oh my goodness. I love what you just said, right? Trust is like the magic word. Because if you trust the coach and the coach trusts you, no matter what happens, right, you're going to be able to absorb it because you know that the relationship is solid, right? And I trust that my coach is doing what's best for me, right? And doing what's best for the team, and like I can live with it. Versus if I don't trust somebody, whether it's on the baseball field or anywhere else in my life, now it's like, I'm not going to be able, I'm going to always have some hanging on to something. Right. And so like going out of your way to tell them that you love them and you care about them is critical, right? Because that trust is critical. That gives them the opportunity also to come and talk to you and not feel like they're going to be punished for it or there's going to be retribution. It's a two-way street, and it's going to allow them to go way past baseball in life, right? Whether it's with a family member, a significant other, a boss, whatever. Hey, I know how to have those kinds of relationships and those kinds of conversations with people. And I also know how to lead people because this is the way it was shown to me by example that my coach cared about me. I'm going to show the same to the people that I mentor, coach, teach, boss, whatever. Right. So it's just so huge. And when that trust doesn't exist, that's where a lot of the lack of confidence on the field comes from. Because it's like, well, I don't trust my coach. What's he going to do? He's going to take me out. I don't know where I stand. Now I get anxious and there's not that relationship. And now I feel like I'm on my own. And that's a really hard place to be when you're playing a game.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no doubt about it. We had mentioned a little bit about parents and we kind of went there. So I'm kind of curious. So yes, you train players. Do you work with the parents at all? Because let's face it. We talked about it briefly. Parents put a lot of pressure on these kids. And I think we talked about it the other night when we were on the phone, is I tell my players and I tell my parents that I tell the players that your parents know nothing about baseball. Okay. Why are you letting them pressure you? Okay. And again, I'm not painting with a broad brush because there are some parents that do know, but most of them don't. Okay. So do you deal with that at all?
Yeah. So I don't, it's interesting. I deal with it for sure. I don't like coach parents necessarily, but when I take on a athlete, the parents are part of the package, right? So they've got meetings built into like our program where I can meet with them and we could talk about their son or daughter's progress. And I'm available to them, right? I think the number one thing that I think parents want to be able to do is just a lot of times to vent, right? Like, and like, I had one parent recently who was like, oh, my son is dating this girl and then they broke up and there's all this stuff like that goes on. And there was something with the coach at school. It wasn't even baseball stuff. It was like stuff in life. And the mom wanted to just sort of like air it out. Right. And I listened to her, and like, I think when they're able to sort of vent and tell me like what their frustrations are as a parent, and I listen to them and maybe I give them some advice or maybe I just listen to them, I think it makes it easier for the kid. Right. And they feel like, okay, they're giving me the information, which is valuable, right? When a parent gives me information, that's something that we would call triangulation in sports psychology, which is like, I'm getting information, not just from a kid, right? That can be dangerous, not dangerous, like in the, in the harm sense, but like I'm only taking one perspective and it's coming from a 16 or 17-year-old kid. And I'm not getting the other side of it. It's like, well, they're telling me everything's great, or they're telling me this. And then mom and dad tell me something completely different. It just raises a flag, right? So I'm like, okay, like let's try to put this puzzle together and figure out what's going on here. Because if the kid's telling me A and mom and dad are telling me B, what's truthful, right? Or maybe the truth is somewhere in the middle. And I want to be able to do that so I can help the kid, right? But I think with parents, I think it's listening to them and trying to sort of give them, same idea, give them little advice. Like, I'm not going to go tell a parent how to parent their kid, right? Because I have my own kids. And I know as a parent, we do the best we can, right? We just want that perspective sometimes that we're not hurting them, right? And, if a parent is hurting a kid, I just in terms of their performance, I would try to gently, interject to them like, hey, maybe you want to try this, or maybe, let them fall on their face a little bit more. And I know it's hard for you, mom or dad, but like, take your hand off the wheel and let the kid drive the car for a bit and see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, I've had many conversations with parents where I've said to them, let's let him fail. Okay?
Yes.
Let's let him fail. And the parents are like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, they're not going to learn anything if we're constantly picking them up and we're constantly coddling them. Let's let them fail. But let's teach them how to deal with that failure.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And that's it, because that's baseball, right? Like, they've got to fall on their face. And then when they get up, they got to be able to reflect on it. Why did I fall on my face? What was I thinking? How did it make me feel? Okay, do I want to think and feel that way again? No. Okay, well, what are we going to change? Right? And we learn from it, and we take that feeling of failure, which hurts a lot of times, and we try to leave it behind. Take the information that we took out of a bad at bat or a bad game or a bad series and go, okay, what did I learn from it? Let's make the adjustment. Like, let's go forward and try to make a change and use the adversity as a learning tool versus a license to, beat ourselves to death with a bat. That's not helpful. It's not. And I did that. I've done that before for myself. Like, just beat myself up constantly. You should have done this. Why'd you swing at that? Well, what'd you do there? That doesn't help anybody.
Yeah.
It just doesn't, because it's over. And it's like, if I feel bad about myself, then I'm going to go to the next at bat feeling bad about myself. I'm likely to get a really bad result because I feel bad about myself versus, hey, it's over. Let's try to get neutral at a minimum, right? Let's get back to process and take the emotion out of it, right? I don't have to feel great about myself, but if I feel bad about myself, it's probably not going to turn out very good.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any type of protocol that you teach him? So in other words, the kid's on the field, he boots a ground ball. What type of protocol do you talk to them about?
Absolutely. I want every baseball player to have a reset routine, right? Reset themselves, right? You can call it whatever you want, but like that reset button, that idea of, hey, I made a mistake. I know I'm in my head. I know I'm feeling bad, but now I got to show up for the next play, right? So for me, it's the awareness that it's happening, right? And I'll talk to a kid about like, what are the things that really trigger you, right? Oh, I struck out swinging at a bad pitch, or I got behind in the count, or right, a ball went through my legs. Whatever those things are for the kids, or for a pitcher, it might be I lost my command and I walked the guy. Okay, those situations send you off the rails. We got to be aware of it. When you're aware of it, take a deep breath, and then let's refocus, right? Let's have a plan to refocus back on the way we want to play the game, like we were talking about before. I'm going to attack, next pitch, compete, whatever that thing is that means something to them, right? There's an association with meaning, like, hey, you know what? I'm going to reset myself, right? And some kids, then I have them write it under the bill of their hat, right? Take off your hat if you're a pitcher and have that reminder visually, right? It's there with you, because when you're looking for that reset mechanism amidst all the negative thoughts and all the feelings, it's going to get lost in that jumble, right? It's like the analogy I give kids is like, if I go to the grocery store without a list, I'm forgetting something. Come to the baseball field with a grocery list. Come with a list, right? Like, I know what I want to do. Let's write it down, right? Like, one kid right on his batting gloves, right? Smoke a ball, right? Like, I just want to hit the ball hard, right? I don't care if I get a hit. Just focus on hitting the ball hard, right? And if I do that, that's all that matters. I can make an out, but I can still hit the ball hard. My goal is really more process oriented. It's not about where the ball drops, right? But whatever that thing is for the kid, and that goes back to just tailoring the coaching to the kid, is like, got to find that thing that means something to them. Because if it means something to them, they're more likely to tap into it than if I give them the answer of like, oh, do this. Tell yourself this, refocus with this. Well, it doesn't mean anything to me, right? Now I'm just doing another adult is telling me to do something that I should do.
Right.
And now I'm resentful of it versus like, no, this is my process.
Right.
I'm just helping them kind of build it out. But if they don't have that protocol of being able to get themselves off the last pitch or the last play, that's going to sit there. And now it's going to lead to distraction. It's going to lead to another mistake. And now all that stuff's going to pile up. And now we're going to have a disaster of a day. And it's probably going to carry over into the next game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, something I've learned, and everybody on the show has heard me say it a million times, but it's so damn important. I've learned from Springer is I give you permission to line out 4 times today.
Mm-hmm.
Go up there and hit the ball hard, and whatever happens, happens. You cannot control it. So, and they go up there and they, again, that's, in other words, it takes their mind off of all of that other nonsense that they're thinking about. And they're saying, okay, you know what? I'm going to hit this ball right at the shortstop. And usually we get good results from that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because they know the results are taken out of play because you've assured them that you're not going to judge them based on the results, right? So now they can free their mind. Then the thinking goes to the process of how. How do I hit the ball 4 times to the shortstop? Okay, now I've got to solve that problem. Like, hey, my coach wants me to line up. How do I do that? Okay, now I'm going to take a deep breath and relax. I'm going to sit back. I'm going to focus on this. I'm going to look for – we haven't even talked about approach, right? Like having an approach, looking for the pitch you want early in the count to be in attack mode, right? Being okay if a guy drops in an off-speed pitch early in the count and I'm not going to panic. I'm looking for fastball in this spot up until 2 strikes, and now I change my approach. Most kids are up there just looking for anything close to get a hit, right? But you've taken that out of play when you tell them go line out 4 times. I don't have to worry about getting a hit. I got to worry about figuring out how I'm going to line out 4 times to the shortstop. Narrows their focus and they get into the process of it, right? And like the question I love to ask is, would you rather go 0 for 10 with 10 seeds right at somebody? Or would you rather go 10 for 10 with 10 soft hits, right? And that tells me a lot about the way a kid thinks.
Sure.
And I think, a lot of them are smart enough to think they're giving me the right answer because a lot of them will tell me I'd rather go 0 for 10 hitting the ball hard 10 times. But every once in a while, I get a kid be like, I'd definitely rather go 10 for 10. Now, that's a red flag to me, right? Like, you want to go 10 for 10 with, 3 infield singles and 7 jam shots? Like, that's not sustainable. Because then the next 90 at bats, you're probably going to go 0 for 90,
Yeah.
Yeah. You just don't realize it,
Yeah.
And so like, I think that's really getting them to focus on the process because like the place where the metrics I think are really valuable is the idea of like, say, exit velocity, right? Like if you hit the ball harder, the more likely it is it's going to drop in. Does it guarantee that it's going to drop in? No. But it does mean that over time, you're going to get more hits because it's going to be harder for the defender to get there, right? So if my focus is on just hitting the ball hard, not the number, but hitting it hard, now I'm creating the opportunity to go out there and be repeatable in terms of just barreling balls up, right? That's my goal. Whether I go 0 for 10 or 10 for 10 doesn't matter. I just want to barrel them because over time, statistically, if I do that, I'm going to get good results and I can live with the short-term failure.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's so important. Let's talk a little bit about pregame routines, instructional stuff. Not even instructional. Let's talk about pregame routines, and one of the things that I love to talk about is self-talk.
Okay. Pregame routines, I start with what do you do to warm up your body? And they'll be like, I do my dynamics, I stretch, I do my arm care, I do my plyos, I do my bands, okay, great. How much time do you take for that? 30 minutes. Okay. Do you have to think about what you're doing? No. Why? Because I do it every time. It's a habit. Right. Okay. How much time do you use in your routine to get your mind ready? Crickets. Right. So I'm not saying to kids, put 30 minutes into your mind. But what I tell them is take 5 minutes on the bus, right? Instead of 30 minutes of goofing around or 30 minutes of scrolling your phone or 30 minutes or whatever, take 5 minutes, close your eyes, breathe, think about what you want to do, what's your plan, right? Carve out that little bit of time just to have an intent for like, what am I going to do today on the field, right? Or pregame, right? Like take 5 minutes in the dugout before the game starts and just think about what your plan is, right? What's my plan? What am I going to do today when I fail? What's going to be, how am I going to use my reset? Like, what am I going to do if something goes wrong? Because like, if you pretend like this is, and maybe this is just me, right? And I think there's some evidence to back it up, but certainly for me, it's like, if you pretend that nothing's going to go wrong, you're sorely mistaken, right? You got to be ready to be like, okay, if this goes wrong, this is how I'm going to respond. So for me, mental prep is about that, right? Like that idea of how am I going to respond when something goes bad versus like, hey, this is going to be a great day. I'm going to be perfect. I'm going to go 4 for 4. And then I go up in the first at bat and I'm 0 for 1. And now it's like my day's ruined because I told myself I was going to go 4 for 4. And now I'm 0 for 1. I'm not going to hit my goal. And now it's a disaster. I have to get a hit on the next one, right? Versus, hey, I'm going to go up there and I'm going to be prepared for whatever comes my way. So I'm big on that. Self-talk, listen, absolutely, right? Like being negative, never going to be helpful, at least from where I sit. Like I think I mentioned this before. If you're beating yourself up, you're going to feel bad. And if you feel bad, you're going to play bad. I think that's almost invariable. Do you have to be super ultra positive, trying to convince yourself like I'm the best player in the world? You could try that. For a lot of players, it doesn't work because if they don't, excuse me, if they don't really believe it, right, then it's going to backfire. So for me, it's about, a lot of times it's just neutrality. It's about, the self-talk is about, hey, go do this. What do I control, right? It kind of goes back to the routine. What's my process? What do I control today? How am I going to respond, right? Like, what's my approach at the plate, right? I'm talking to myself about that, right? Versus like, oh, I got this, I'm going to do it. And then like you hear that from parents too, you got this, right? And then like, I can't tell you how many kids get annoyed when the parent says, I got this, or you got this. And they're like, no, I don't, I don't believe it. Shut up. I don't want to hear it from you, right? Versus attack, breathe, have fun, whatever it is, that's a little bit more process oriented. So like, I'm very big on that because I just feel like some kids, especially when they're in a bad place, to try to get them to counter the negative stuff with something that's really ultra positive is hard because they're not believing it versus, hey, whatever just happened really hurt, but like, I got to get back to what can I do that I can control. And now my self-talk is focused on go do something constructive that's going to put me back in a place to succeed. But self-talk is valuable because if it's always negative, the performance is really going to suffer because it's going to make you feel bad about yourself.
Yeah, I tend to use cues to get them thinking the right way. So
Love it.
What we'll do is, we'll do our focus breathing. Okay, batter's up. Mm-hmm. He'll look at the barrel of the bat, 1 foot in the batter's box, deep breath in. And while he's doing that, I may shout out something from third base like "stay on top." So what I'm doing is I'm focusing, taking his focus and putting it on one thing. Stay on top. Bang, bang, bang. That's it. And again, it seems to work. Just using cues. Don't fill them with too much stuff.
Yeah. And what you just described is you just described a tag team approach to having a reset, right? They're doing the breathing. They're stepping out of the box, right? You're giving them the cue, right? And you're doing it together.
Yeah.
Right. So what I'm doing with kids a lot of times is I'm giving it to them. I'm helping them develop the whole process so they have it for themselves. Right. So when they write something on their batting gloves or they write something on the tape on the barrel of their bat, it serves the same purpose, but it's simple, right? It's a phrase or it's a cue. It's one thing. And when you say stay on top, it's a process cue, right? Like, hey, just get on top of the ball. If you do that, it's success, right? Are you going to get a hit? Nope, not guaranteed. But if you stay on top, that's going to help. And you're probably more likely to get results. And now you're helping them narrow down the focus. It's not this, I got to get a hit. I got to do this. It's real super big. If people are listening, my arms are wide. It's no, I'm narrowing down my focus. Okay, take a deep breath, relax, focus in and get on top. Okay, I just got to get on top. I don't have to do anything else. It's so simple, but that's what you want to be able to do. Because if you're focused on 5 things or you're focused on something you can't control, like trying to generate a result that's completely out of your control, you're done, right? So the way you're doing it is great. Again, as a coach, I gotta, and I don't want to sidetrack us here, but I'll just sort of use an example. I got a text from my mom the other night who sent me a text from the coach. The coach sent it to the team and she sent it to me. I won't get into it. Doesn't matter. But it was all about results. And the coach was browbeating the team for a game they should have won. And it was all about, you need to do all this thing to get better results. And I just couldn't help but like thinking to myself, like, this coach is like he doesn't understand that what he just did is probably going to lead to doom and disaster for the next 5 games of the season. You're not helping, right? Versus forget about that. We're going to lose bad games. We're going to go into games. A lot of kids, and maybe you see this, we talk about it. Kids come into games and they're like, oh, we're going to beat this team. We're going to beat them. They're terrible. And they lose. Why? Because they come into the game thinking they don't have to play hard and be focused and play their best and compete because they're going to roll over on them, and you lose. And it's like, well, why do we lose? Well, why? Because you didn't come into the game focusing on playing up to your standards and to your approach and competing versus, oh, you know what? We're just going to beat these guys. You're putting your focus on the wrong thing. Hey, let's just go play our game, and if we do that, we'll be fine, but we got to focus there. So when the coaches are reinforcing the results, I guess is the point, to go back to what you said, when they're reinforcing the results, now it's putting more pressure on the kid.
Yeah. I mean, I talk about it with my players all the time is we've played games that we've lost, and I was happier than can be. And I tell them, guys, you played great today. I'm proud of you, and I'll go through everything. There's other times when we win a game and I'm on the opposite side of that. I'm like, you guys, you're lucky to walk out of here with a win today. No, da-da-da-da-da. And recently what's been happening is I've noticed, and I'm being selfish by asking this question, but I've noticed that, we're maybe 2/3 of the way done with our season, and I noticed that intensity and motivation has dropped, okay? And I'm struggling with it because I don't know how to get them back up to, in the beginning of the season, they were fighting like crazy. So I don't know. Do you have any advice when that happens?
I'm going to ask you a question back. What's your theory? What do you think it is?
I think that they're just bored. In other words, what we said about playing all year round, it's day after day after grind after grind, and all of a sudden it's like, they're not as fiery as they were in the beginning of the season. We were coming out and we were playing against, we're an class A team. We played a class AAA team and led the game throughout the whole game. And then we wound up losing, in the later innings. But again, that was one of those games where I said, I was very proud of you guys, the way you fought. So they had that intensity in those games. Now we're playing opponents that are like our level, and I just don't feel that intensity.
Well, I think, the thing that comes to my mind is the why, right? Why are you playing baseball, right? And this, it's I think sometimes they forget why they're playing. And I think it does tie directly to what you said, which is they play all year round. So every game, the meaning of every game seems to almost like there's diminishing marginal returns. Play so many baseball games. It's I'm tired. It's the end of the year. One of the things, maybe they're seniors, right? Or maybe it's the end of the year and kids are just ready to be done with school. Maybe that could be it. I think the other thing that I hear a lot, and I don't know if this is the case with your team, but with school teams, there's just a huge difference from the top to the bottom of the roster, right? Your top kids want to play in college. Your top kids love baseball. They're really motivated. They want to get to the next level. And your bottom kids, maybe they don't. They don't care as much. And so what ends up happening, I think there's contagious. It gets contagious from the bottom, right? It's the kids at the bottom don't care as much, and it just creates apathy or frustration, and it sort of affects the unit, right? So it's I would try to I would say hey, what are we doing here? What do we want to accomplish the rest of the way, and why do we want it, right? Because if they understand that there's a reason why they want to do it, they're much more likely, because that kind of ties to the autonomy piece of motivation, right? Which is if I feel like I'm in this because I want to be in it and I have control over my destiny and I have control over my experience, I'm much more likely to be motivated than I feel like I'm being forced to do this or I'm just going through the motions, right? And I don't know how you replicate that, because it could just be fatigue, right? At this point in the season. But I think getting underneath that with their purpose, hey, what are we doing here? Why are we here? Why do we want to win? Or why are we playing baseball? To get them to sort of tap into it and give the answers for themselves. Why am I here? What's the point of me being here? Well, if I want to be here to win a state championship, or I want to win a sectional championship, or I want to win a county championship, then I got to do my part, right? I think it's got to come from within. And I think a lot of times kids that age, even if they're really good players, look around at everybody else and go like, what's their role in this? And they want to point the finger out like, Johnny's not doing this and Tommy's not doing that, versus like, what's my role in this? Even if I'm a bench player, how do I contribute to this team winning? And sometimes it doesn't feel important to them because they're not contributing.
Yeah.
At least on the field.
Yeah. Yeah. And I what I did was, we practiced yesterday and I kept the practice very light. Mm-hmm. We did our work, but when I say light, I mean light and airy. We were having fun. I was letting the boys play around. I was playing with them,
That's great.
Keeping it real light. I gave them today off, and then tomorrow we're going to go in the classroom and we're going to do some classroom work, and then we'll get ready for our game on. But I felt that because I felt that motivation and that intensity waning, that if I give them like a little bit of a break now, but don't just let them off for 3 days. Maybe I could relight that fire, and we'll see how that works.
I think it's a great adjustment, right? I think that's really good coaching because listen, you've been coaching a long time. I'm sure there's plenty of coaches who would go exactly the opposite direction. They'd be like, we're going to practice for 3 hours today. We're going to run. We're going to do that, and like that can be the thing that really, crushes them, right? Like, like now I'm not motivated to be here. Now coach is punishing us. And like, I don't want to be punished versus like, hey, I get it. Like, let's give ourselves a little bit of a breather for a couple of days to sort of just kind of reset the sails and we'll go back to work. Right. And that's all you could do as a coach, right? You can't read their minds. That's the other thing, right? Like that's a hard part of being a coach. How many kids do you have on your roster?
We only have 13. So
yeah, that's not a lot, but also in some ways it's the less is better in the sense that like you don't have a huge group. But even then with 13 kids, right, it's hard to get in the 13 kids' heads, and so you've got to try to like push the buttons and go like, hey, let's see if this works. Yeah. Okay, it did great. Let's keep going. Or it didn't. Okay, I got to try something else. Like that's the best you can do, right? And they're kids, right? Like they're 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. Like they're teenagers. Sometimes you got to like resign yourself to the fact that they're going to be teenagers and you can try everything in the world. But if they don't want to cooperate, good luck trying to get them to do something different.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something that I don't know why you triggered this, but that's something that I've done this year that I've never done before. And again, it was from talking to other coaches and
yeah, that's great.
Listening to what they say is, believe it or not, I'm getting the parents a little bit more involved, which I was always against. I was like, I don't want to deal with this, but you know what? It was brought to me that, hey, they can be an ally. What do you think?
I love it. I do. And maybe I'm biased because that's the way that I do my work, but it's a lot easier when it's one-on-one, right? Like I'm working for their kid. And so we're all kind of on the same team and it's a small group and we're talking, right? We're trying to get the same goal to get this kid going in a good direction and be happy and playing well and all those things. Whereas you got competing interests to a certain extent, right? Like, if you talk to Johnny's father, he'd be like, yeah, he's an ally. You talk to Tommy's father and Tommy's not playing and they're pissed. Right. So you got more stuff to do, but I think it is a good idea. And I think for a lot of coaches, they just don't entertain the idea because it just seems so overwhelming, right? If I have to interact with all these families, it's going to be a lot of headache I don't want. Or maybe if I open the door crack and let them in, they're going to come charging through and I got to deal with, every idea, every text message, every complaint. But you're right. I think if they feel like they have a voice in the process and you're able to manage that, they can absolutely be an ally because they can also give you some insight about what's going on at home with the kid. Oh, he's having a problem with his girlfriend. He's struggling in his class. He comes home at night and he's really moody and angry because of the way he's playing on the field. You can get that insight from the parent that the kid's not giving you. Now you can go, it's kind of what I was saying before, right? Now you can go, oh, I get it a little bit better. He's been out of sorts for the last week. Now I understand why. Now I can go push a different button and try to like talk to him, not about baseball, but like, hey, how are things going? You all right? You doing okay? And he maybe starts to open up, unload some of it. And you're like, oh, okay. Now I'm talking about other stuff besides baseball, and the relationship and the trust comes out through that other parts of their life, and he can unload it and be like, okay, awesome. I could talk to coach. Now I lighten his load. Now he goes out and he plays more freely.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I'm doing it in baby steps. Right now all I'm doing is basically whatever I communicate with the boys, I communicate with the parents also. So, practice is moved, from such and such to such and such. I used to be, I'll tell the boys, it's your responsibility to tell the parents. Mm-hmm. So I said, well, you know what? I let the parents know now this is what's going on. So this way, if little Johnny forgets, mom and dad are like, hey, nope, coach said this. You know what I mean? And then as time goes by, then I'll start getting a little bit more involvement from them. Again, to a certain degree. There's things that I won't do, but yeah. So
yeah, like playing time. I'm not going to entertain those conversations.
Yeah. And you want to know something? Sometimes I'll even address that. A lot of times I will, because I live by being brutally honest. And if you're going to come to me and say, why is he? I have an answer. Okay?
Yes, there's a reason.
Answer. Yeah.
And exactly. And that's exactly what I was saying to you before, which is you might not like the answer, right? But for a kid, I think the kids are better at this than the parents, truthfully. The kids take the brutally honest truth better than the parents do, because the kid goes, okay, now I know what I need to do. And coach was honest with me. I appreciate that, even though it hurt. Right. The parents have a harder time with that brutal honesty of like, hey, he's not good enough, or he's not doing these things. Because in their mind, they're going, well, I'm paying for training all year round. What do you mean he's not good enough? He's better than so-and-so.
Yeah.
Well, one, you don't know as much as me. Two, you're biased because it's your kid, right? So like you got to be able as a parent to take yourself out of that and go like, I got to trust the coach's judgment. Like there's a reason there. And if I want the reason, I got to live with it and be like, okay, he's the expert. I'm not. And as much as it pisses me off that my kid's not playing, I got to accept it and then try to support my kid through it. Okay. Coach said, you got to get better at this. What are you doing to get better at that?
Yeah.
Right. Like I'm going to hold you accountable. I'm not going to tell you what to do necessarily, but are you working on that? And if you're not working on it, well then whose fault is it then?
Yes.
It's not yours and it's not the parents. It's the kid's fault.
Yeah. I mean, I literally just had this happen this year. Had a kid on the team last year. As a sophomore, he was on varsity and he's a catcher. Great kid. And this is something that parents, I don't think that they really understand. Maybe they do, but I don't think they do. So anyway, he was on varsity as a sophomore because I needed another catcher. Okay, I was new to the program. I didn't know the players that well, and he seemed to be working hard, good attitude, great kid. I love him to death. Okay, this year he's a junior, but a sophomore came up that is a lot better than he is. He hits, he blocks, he does everything that you could ask a catcher to do. He's very talented. So the other kid is not playing. Right. Now, the one thing that I think that the parents don't understand is it breaks my heart just as much as it breaks yours. Okay. It tears me apart inside because I know what's going on. I see it. I'm the one who's doing it. Mm-hmm. But he came to me and said, hey, coach, what do I got to do to get on the field? And again, I was honest with him. I said, during our exit meeting last year, we spoke about this. I needed this. I needed you to work on it. Now, did I expect you to become, the next coming of Thurman Munson? No. But I needed to see improvement. I said, and I didn't see. I'm not seeing it. I said, so if you can't put in the work, I can't help you. You have to put the work in. So anyway, the point that I really want to make is I don't really think a lot of times the parents understand how much it breaks my heart as a coach because I know what's going on.
Yeah, you know what's going on, and you have to make the decision. You have to disappoint the kid, and you care about the kid, and you want to get him on the field, but you got to do what's best for the team, right? And if the other catcher is going to give the team a better chance to win, that's your responsibility.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the coach doesn't like me stuff comes in, and it's not that at all, right? It's I got to separate the relationship from the job that I have, which is I got to put the best team on the field. The other side of this, I'm curious about your opinion about this, because this is something I talk to kids a lot about that they don't necessarily always understand is sometimes the coach's ability to trust the consistency in a player is more valuable than the ceiling of a player. Meaning my ability, especially like a college level, right? I might be more able, I might throw harder, I might have like more tools and skills, but this kid shows up every day the same way. I don't have to think about what I'm going to get. And they don't realize like I'm better than so-and-so. Maybe that's true, but so-and-so shows up every day consistently. I know exactly what I'm going to get. So I don't have to think about, oh, what version of this kid am I going to get today? Kids don't get that. They're like, oh, I'm better than him. Doesn't always matter. It's like, can I trust you to show up consistently? Because if I know what I'm going to get, that takes all the things I have to think about out of play. Like this kid's going to give me exactly what they're going to give me and I'm good. Move on to something else. Right.
No doubt whatsoever. Okay. Yeah. I will take a kid, and I've said it a million times. I will take a kid that is marginally talented with a good attitude and a good work ethic over a kid who's really talented and has a crappy work ethic and a crappy attitude. And I've done it many times. One player comes to mind all the time when I talk about this because he is the poster child for what you just talked about. Mm-hmm. He was not a great player. He was an adequate, average player. But man, oh man, what you said, I knew what I was getting out of him every time that kid stepped on the field. And this is when I was a JV coach. And the varsity coach even asked me, he said, what do you see in this kid? I said, he gives me the same thing every single day. I said, and he will play for me every single day until that goes away. And yes, that's the way it goes. I will not, again, just everything that you said. Yes, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
That's great. Well, listen, I mean, I just think it's hard. Sometimes it's hard for kids to understand. And maybe it's the showcase world we live in, right? We're in the metrics world and like the social media world of, I just had this conversation with a kid that I work with, a great kid. I've referenced him a couple of times without saying him, but a great kid. And he works with one of your past guests on the recruiting side. That's how I sort of got connected to him. And we were talking about Thursday night, we were talking about social media and how he's like, I go into social media and I go into Twitter, I go into Instagram and I everything's baseball because I'm a baseball guy. I'm a junkie. And I see all these kids posting like these clips being posted for these other kids who are sort of in my realm. He's a 26 or 27 kid, graduate year. And I was like, okay. I'm like, are you posting stuff on social media? And he's like, no, not right now. Okay. Right. So like it's not a fair fight. Like you're comparing yourself to those kids who are posting on those clips on social media and you're not posting. So like, who cares? Like they don't see you. Like two, like, it's like, it doesn't, you're putting your feelings about yourself into like this comparison and you don't even know, like that could be one good clip out of 10, right? Like they're showing you the best, but they might've been 0 for 9 with 9 strikeouts, but you just saw the one clip and you're like, well, I'm not as good as him. Like, don't worry about that stuff, right? Like worry about what you can control, show up, play your game, play hard, work on your stuff. And your time is going to come, right? Summertime will come. There'll be more clips. There'll be more stuff. Don't worry about it now. But to let that element bother you is really, really destructive. And I think that that's the world also that we live in with a lot of kids. They're just so focused on what other people are doing. It's got nothing to do with them, the comparisons, right? Just show up and bust your ass every single day. Run hard down the line. Show up, pick up your teammates, right? Like go up there and grind out an at bat. Like that's what's going to get you noticed if you have the talent, right? Maybe you don't have the talent and some kids have that grinded out ability you just described. That kid, he's maybe not going on to play in college, but he loves the game and I'm going to play him. But if you're that kid who has the ability and you do that, you're undeniable, exactly. Right? And you don't have to worry about what other people are doing. You just do your thing and focus on what you can control because now you have the reliability in terms of the way you show up, and you've got the ceiling on the tools and the ability and the things that you flash. Now all of a sudden coach goes, I want that kid because he always shows up and he plays hard and he's got a great swing and he's got 100 exit velo, whatever it is that coaches look at nowadays.
Yeah. Well, social media is another thing that I would love to get into with you because that's another problem that we have. But, Mike, I got to tell you, this was a fantastic conversation. I enjoyed it immensely, and let everybody know how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, best way to get a hold of me is through my website. It's michaelvhuber.com. That's kind of where you can find my social media. You can contact me. You can find a bunch of free stuff, including baseball-related resources, take-home stuff, blogs, podcasts, all those things. But feel free to reach out to me anytime. I love to talk to parents and I love to talk to kids about what they're doing. And I just want to help. I love what I do and I love being a part of the community, and hopefully added some value back into, what's become a very, very pressure-filled environment.
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you from what I know of you, yes, you're doing a great job, and, keep working hard at it, because we need more guys like you to teach this side of the game that'll help. I'm being selfish because it's going to help coaches like me,
Yeah. And same to you. I love the things that you said as a coach, and, good coaches make good players, and they're really, really valuable. So I value what you do, and I appreciate you having me on the podcast.
Well, I appreciate the kind words, and Mike, thank you. And we will stay in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jimmy.
So, are you starting to get it now? I mean, mental performance is a big part of what we do as coaches. Mike and I talked about many, many things that could help players, coaches, and yes, even parents. There's so much to it. I think that if people understood a lot of these principles that make up mental performance, it would help everybody to understand the game better. I mean, we talked about having a growth mindset. We talked about being resourceful, confidence, resilience, just everything that's involved in sports. And I believe that if more people understood that these are the problems that players deal with, that they have a hard time understanding how to fail, they have a hard time understanding the thought process, they get paralyzed by fear from their coaches and their parents, because the pressure that is put on these kids is so unnecessary. I think that if everybody really understood this, that the youth baseball world would start to change for the better. These kids are dealing with a lot of stuff that we as coaches and mental performance consultants like Mike need to work with players to help them overcome. Instead of everybody getting all upset and yelling at kids and doing all of this stuff, well, the only thing I can tell you is look up Michael at michaelvhuber.com and see what he's all about. I mean, there's courses, there's a lot of stuff there that can help you understand this better as a player, a coach, and a parent. So, if you enjoyed today's show, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Visit the website at thectbshow.net. Listen to your favorite episodes, and please leave us a review. You can also reach out to the show on social media, X, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and get this, the old man has finally got us on TikTok. Keeps me young. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, please drop us an email at clearingthebases@gmail.com. Your feedback helps us bring you the best content and reach more people in the baseball community just like you. And also, let me know if you'd like to be a guest. Until then, coaches and players, keep practicing, stay positive, and remember, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Thanks, everyone, and I'll see you on the next one.